All right, I'm back and we're live on YouTube. And like I said, I'm going to record this meeting also. So we make sure we have it so it's available for your use. And welcome to the Douglas County Democrats Sheriff Candidate Forum. My name is Betsy Cunningham, and I am the chair of the candidate committee as well as the outreach committee for the Democratic Party. Um, so I can't hear you. You're speaking, but you're muted.
Is that okay? There, can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right.
All right. So everybody but the candidates, I'd like, to you to be muted. And even the candidates, maybe when you're not speaking in the 10 minutes, because what happens is that it'll shift to it's supposed to be speaker view and it'll shift to who's ever speaking, even if they're not, if they just even speak a little bit. So anyway, so this is going to be pretty informal. It's not a debate, and it's just to give people the opportunity to get to know the who's running for sheriff, particularly since it's a three-person race. That's really what motivated us to think this might be an interesting idea. Before I signed on today, I used an online application program called Raffly to figure out who was going to go first in the initial first, second, and third. So it was randomly picked by that. But like I said, it's pretty informal. We're going to give about 10 minutes to each candidate to not only just share who they are, why they think that they're the best candidate for the job, but also answer any individual questions that people in the audience may have of them. Um, then after everyone goes, then we're going to open it up to general questions for like something that may apply to all three candidates, and then give about a minute or so for each candidate to close. So are there any questions?
No, ma'am.
All right. So, and in regard to how you answer questions when you have your 10 minutes, that's really kind of up to you, whether you want to talk all and then ask questions. It's really your preference. So whatever you do. So who the random application picked to go first was actually coincidentally Greg Kinnerly. And then I believe it was John Hanlon and then Brad Odell. So take it away.
Okay, for our 10 minutes, explain who we are.
Who you are, why you want to be sheriff, why we should vote for you, and field any questions individually.
Okay, so I'm Officer Greg Kenner of the Cow Creek Police Department. I have been in law enforcement about 14 years. I was born and raised on a sheep and cattle ranch in Dillard, Oregon. When I graduated high school, I went to Universal Technical Institute in Arizona for refrigeration, air conditioning. And when I came back, I was either going to continue in that field or continue with a produce manager. And at that time, the spotted owl hit. Things were kind of devastating at that point for Douglas County. So I ended up getting a chance to go to Hawaii. I landed on Oahu, didn't care for that, landed on Maui. I like that, went in to a local refrigeration company, and they told me with about 10 minutes I got a job. And so I ended up being there for 25 years. Hawaii was booming, and Douglas County was devastated at that time. It was like landing on a different planet between the two. Ended up staying there for 25 years as a mechanical contractor. When I had my son, I decided, I knew that at that point that I was going to always raise him on the ranch. So I moved back, retired, and to raise my son on the ranch. And I got into law enforcement as a reserve, and I got into the Reserve Academy at the UCC, graduated with honors there. And that kicked off my law enforcement career. Worked for the sheriff's office about 7 years or so, and then got the contract position there for the tribe. And then the tribal police started their own, and I joined there. So we have the tribal police. I have state authority with also I have tribal authority and federal authority. So I'm also a lifetime NRA member, and I'm also a national NRA law enforcement range master certification. Yeah, my son is a Marine, so I'm proud of him. So coming back and being raised on the ranch was worth it. I asked him when we were getting ready to go, when he was getting ready to go to boot camp, if it was the right thing to leave Hawaii and join, come back to the ranch, and he said it was by far the best thing. My family's been here since 1853. We've been in the farming community. We've been feeding the people in Douglas County, and still to this day, very involved in 4-H. My daughter's going to show a lamb. So that's pretty much my scope of what I've done in my life, and my background. The greatest grandparents in the world and the greatest parents in the world, and I believe I had the greatest structure of being raised on a ranch. So if anybody has any questions, I would love to answer them, and go from there. Hello.
Questions?
In- Hello.
Yeah, people, no one has their hands up or no one's chiming in to ask questions. So,
Okay.
all right. All right. So well, maybe they'll ask questions when you're all there, all three on the hot seat. So next up is Sheriff Hanlon.
So we need to mute that for him, each candidate. So
Yeah, you should, yeah,
you hit
in
mute.
case there's a
Okay.
background noise, yeah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So who are you and why do you want to be the sheriff?
All right, it's my turn. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to you tonight. I've been your Douglas County Sheriff since 2009, and it's been an honor to serve as your sheriff, and I truly hope I have met your expectations while serving in this honorable capacity. My qualifications include 35 years of experience in the sheriff's office. I've got multiple certifications through the Department of Public Safety Standards and Training. I hold an associate's degree in computer science from Central Oregon College. I've had assignments in patrol, narcotics, criminal investigations, major crimes, search and rescue, the tactical response team, and emergency management. And I've worked through the ranks of the department as a deputy, as a corporal, a sergeant, a commander, a lieutenant, and of course, as your sheriff. My experiences with the sheriff's office have been mostly fun and exciting, but I got to admit that some were very challenging and some were completely heartbreaking and some were just honestly scary as heck. But of all my experiences, none have been as rewarding nor as honorable as being your sheriff. I failed to mention a little bit about myself, my upbringing. I'm a third generation Oregonian, third generation Douglas County citizen. I was raised in a logging industry home. My father was a forester. My grandfather was born in a logging camp in Western Washington, and my great grandfather worked in a logging camp. So I'm no stranger to the timber industry and the issues that we have presented to us here in Douglas County. Since I was first elected as sheriff, I've received a number of awards and recognitions for my involvement in the community, standing up for your rights, and the work I've done with the state legislature and the state and federal courts in defense of our Bill of Rights. With the growing homeless, mental health, and drug addiction issues we are experiencing, I'm confident that my experience and my relationships with our state lawmakers will continue to prove effective for working on these complex issues. The importance of experience and institutional knowledge in this line of work in the office of sheriff cannot be dismissed or undervalued. And I suggest to you that public safety cannot and should not be run like a business. Running a sheriff's office is about being fiscally responsible with taxpayer dollars and providing necessary services to the public. In business, irresponsible management costs money. In public safety, irresponsible management costs property and lives. Two very different things. During my past 4 years in office, we've built an exceptional sheriff's office, one that's highly respected around the state, one that's known for professionalism and high ethical standards, and whose members are focused on serving with respect, courage, pride, and integrity. These are professional qualities that you all deserve and I expect. We've accomplished a lot. Here's just a few things that we've accomplished. We've created a positive, service-oriented culture throughout the sheriff's office. We've created a school safety program with deputies in our schools. It both increases safety for our students and children in our schools, but builds positive relationships between officers and our youth, which are our future. We've re-implemented a professional and very successful canine program, and we continue to build and improve upon our search and rescue program. So if I'm fortunate enough to earn your vote, I have a few more tasks to complete. And they are to see through the implementation of a new countywide public safety radio system, to continue building programs that protect our most vulnerable, like children and the elderly, and to develop my successor for sheriff, and that is Lieutenant Brad Odell, who's with us tonight. Over the next few years, I will continue the career development of Brad Odell. He will become second in command, which will provide him with valuable executive experience. That experience will make Brad an exceptionally qualified candidate for the office of sheriff when I'm ready to retire. And contested campaigns can be a distraction for the sheriff's office and have a negative effect on department operations. A succession plan will maintain stability in the sheriff's office, will better prepare Odell to be the next sheriff, and create a seamless transition of leadership when I retire. Now, I recognize that's not my decision to make, it's the voters, but I do believe it's part of my responsibility to have a solid transition plan, succession plan in place when I'm ready to leave. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the audience? No? Yeah, no? All right. So last up for this portion is Lieutenant Brad Odell.
Well, good evening. And again, I want to echo what Sheriff Hamlin said this evening as far as thank you for hosting this opportunity for us to talk to the voters and express a little bit about ourselves and who we are and why we believe that we are fit for office. So I'd like to introduce myself. For those who don't know me, my name is Brad Odell. I was raised in Douglas County essentially my entire life. I come from a family of hardworking individuals who really came from the timber industry. My dad worked for the Oregon Department of Transportation, and my mom was a registered nurse. I am the eldest of three, and in 2009, I married my wife, Holly, and we've made our home here in Roseburg. It's been my great honor to serve the citizens of Douglas County throughout my public safety career, especially that under the leadership of Sheriff Hanlon. I began my public safety career at the age of 16. I started out as an Explorer cadet with the Glide Fire Department and spent time as a volunteer firefighter and EMT with the Glide Fire Department. Upon high school graduation, I worked for a private ambulance company in town, which was West Ambulance. That really provided me an opportunity to continue my public safety service. In 2006 is when I began my career with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, and I've served in a number of roles and duties at the Sheriff's Office. I began as a 911 dispatcher, where I learned how taking 911 calls are processed and how we dispatch the appropriate resources. In 2007, I transferred to the patrol division as a patrol deputy. And I worked in patrol for a number of years before I was promoted to the rank of major crimes detective. I worked in detectives for 4 years, working various cases, including child abuse cases, homicide, robbery, and other major crime cases. It was after 4 years of service there in the detectives division that I transferred back to patrol and was promoted to the rank of corporal, which is a frontline supervisor. Upon working in that role for a number of years, working with new deputies and mentoring them, I was promoted to the rank of sergeant, and I worked in that role for a number of years before being promoted to lieutenant about 2 years ago. In my current role, I serve as the public information officer for the agency. I've had an opportunity under the leadership of Sheriff Hanlon to work in administration, learning things about policies and procedures, how to implement public safety policies, and ensuring that we are serving the citizens and providing a professional public safety agency. I currently oversee the Special Services Unit, which includes Marine, Timber, 911, Animal Control, Search and Rescue, and a number of other duties. I hold an advanced supervisory management and executive certificate issued by the Department of Public Safety Standards and Training. That has been issued based on my experience in working for the Sheriff's Office for the past 18 years. I also hold an Associate's of Applied Science and a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I am extremely proud of the work done by the men and women of the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. And for years, I have aspired to be your sheriff at some point in time. And when I learned that another candidate had entered the election, I was concerned that if for some reason that Sheriff Hanlon was unable to or decided not to see the election through, although highly unlikely, I wanted the citizens and the voters to have another qualified and tenured candidate to choose from. Experience, knowledge, and training is extremely important in the role of sheriff. And to be clear, I do fully support Sheriff Hanlon's bid for re-election. Again, I'm here in the event that the sheriff was unlikely to see the election through. This is also, as I mentioned, an opportunity for me to get to know the voters and understand what's important to all of you, because that is who the sheriff serves, is the public. And it is important that we are there and we understand what issues are important to you, the voters. Our community has endured many disasters and emergencies over the years, and the importance of strong public safety leadership, 24-hour patrols, and a fully operational jail and 911 dispatch center cannot be dismissed. Continuing to seek stable and viable funding is a top priority. Relationships matter, and I have good working relationships in my experience as a volunteer firefighter, an EMT, a 911 dispatcher, and a law enforcement officer. I've worked with a number of agencies throughout my tenure, and those relationships matter. Continuing to work with county officials and agency partners to find a viable solution to replace our antiquated 911 emergency communications radio system is a top priority as well. This is no small task, and it is something that we have been working on for a number of years and will continue to work on, and ensuring that the public and our responders have the viable communication that's necessary in order to save lives. I know that experience matters, and when the time comes, I'm not only ready, but I would be honored to be your sheriff. I feel that Sheriff Hanlon's experience and tenure as sheriff makes him an exceptionally qualified candidate. I also feel that my experience and my ability to work with others in the public safety field, as well as my experience as a public safety servant, is critically important as well. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have. Otherwise, we'll move on.
Anybody have questions from the audience?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious, Brad, why you're running. If you're going to be following Sheriff Hanlon, I mean, if you're second in line, why are you running in this campaign?
So it's a good question, and I am running for a couple of reasons. Again, Sheriff Hanlon has been our sheriff for 16 years. And in the event that he decided not to see the election through, I wanted to provide the voters another opportunity to have someone else to choose from. And so that's why I'm here. I am here because I want to serve this community in the capacity of sheriff, whether that's now or at a later time. I'm here, I'm ready, and I'm willing. The other thing is this is a good opportunity. This is something that would not have occurred had Sheriff Hanlon not entered the race. Or I'm sorry, would the other candidate not had entered the race. This allows me the opportunity to gain experience in the campaign process. And so I'm learning that. And what it really also provides me is the ability to get out and learn what's important to the voters. And so talking with people, forums such as this allow me to gauge that feedback. And then whether I become the sheriff or I continue in my current role, I know what's important to the community, and I'm able to carry that forward and help to steer the direction of the agency. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Any other questions specifically for this candidate? No. All right, so we will move on to the next segment, which is just a general Q&A. And what I will do is actually some folks had written in on their sign-up sheet for this form some questions. So and this is for each of you, be given the opportunity to answer them. First off is, how will you handle counter protest at pride events or other social gatherings?
Are we supposed to take turns?
Yeah, and how about the way we do it is we'll have John go first, Brad, and then Greg. We'll rotate it that way.
Okay, so you want me to go first? Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah.
And could you please repeat the question?
Yeah. How will you handle counter protest at pride events or other social gatherings?
So we've had a number of protests, pride protests in the county. We had one at the Douglas County Fairgrounds. We had one on the front lawn of the courthouse. And I completely support and defend individuals' constitutional rights, including their right to freedom of speech and to protest. And I think we've demonstrated that in the past in explaining to them that we are going to be there to protect them and to keep the peace and allow them to have their protests without interference from people that are in disagreement with their lifestyle or with their opinions. Again, an individual's First Amendment is as important as any of the other amendments on the Bill of Rights. And we will do everything we can possibly do to allow them to exercise those rights legally and lawfully.
So I agree with that statement. The ability for someone to express themselves is protected. It's protected in the Bill of Rights. It is part of what makes America. And as sheriff, whether that's now or in the future, the ability, allowing people to express themselves in a legal and lawful manner is just as important as any other right that they have. And so I would, again, support them in that, ensuring that law and order is upheld.
Hello, it's Greg Kennerly. Yeah, I agree with that. As long as it's, you're there to protect them and they can have the freedom of speech is critical. We had a lot of that in Hawaii. I've had just about every race working for me, and their cultures and beliefs can be totally different, and you got to respect and understand that. So what seems foreign to you is is vice versa to them. So that's one big advantage I had about being outside and going to work and having all the different races is you understand and you see and understand more where they're coming from, and it's good to learn and understand where people's different views are, and as long as they keep it peaceful and everything, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I wholly, totally agree with that. Everybody hear me? Is it, hello?
Yeah, you're still on.
Okay.
Looks like everybody else has turned their microphone off.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
I had to switch between screens and I couldn't see my cursor. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So the other question, there's a couple more questions, and I think I'm not going to go back and forth between this, so I can keep track of it better. So another question is, how will you address the mental health crisis?
So is this addressed to the sheriff?
So we'll go to Brad first, then Greg, and then John.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. Addressing the mental health crisis, that's a complex issue. However, we have some fantastic partners in our community, and policing is all about partnerships and working with agencies like ADAPT and other resources that are in the community. We're currently doing that. And so those relationships are critically important. Evaluating what we're doing. Is it working? Is it not working? And then trying to help address the underlying issue. The underlying issues in some cases, it relates to drugs and drug addiction. And so if we can work to try to get resources to individuals while also upholding law and accountability, I think that we're on the right track. Again, the partnership component of this is incredibly large, incredibly huge. ADAPT Mobile Crisis is a fantastic resource in the community. Law enforcement is currently utilizing them to respond to some non-emergent calls and take that call load off of law enforcement and get those individuals the resources that they need in order to be successful, happy, and healthy.
Okay, Greg, and then John.
Okay.
And the question
Yeah.
is, how will you address mental health crisis?
Yeah. So our ADAPT program, people in there, it is phenomenal. We have one of the tribal deputies has come from Medford, and he's very impressed with the ADAPT here. The one thing a lot of that is coming off of is from the Cow Creek mental health and DHS services. Working with them, they have a phenomenal program on how to help the tribal members and stuff. I am going to definitely agree with Brad on that as far as there's mental health and there's also the drug issue, and in determining which one's which. The drug issue, when someone's on drugs, they become a different person. And it's hard to explain or to people that are normal unless you're out there on the field and you're actually handling calls. It's they're complete different personality. So if someone has mental health that's continuing with that is a constant battle they deal with. Now, so if you get the mental health part, there's a lot of agencies and a lot to figure out what is doctors to figure out what is the mental health issue, what is the cause of it, is it schizophrenia, what's the actual problem on that, and making sure they get the right help and doctors for that. The drug addiction thing is always going to be that's the ultimate question as far, and $1 million question is, I think there's some programs out there. I know the tribe has a great program, and what we're kind of finding out, it looks like, and Rhode Island seems one of the most successful programs out there is after what I believe what Rhode Island does is after the third arrest, what they do is they put them into a drug jail. It's a prison, but it's not like a normal prison. And what they do is they learn a trade, and it seems to be after a year, if somebody can get off the drugs for a year, there seems to be that magical point where maybe they can turn around the success rate. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't know the stats on that, but I know with working with the tribe for basically the last 6-7 years, that seems to be the key, is if they can get off the drugs for a year, then they have a lot better success rate. So I think that there are two issues. There is the drug issues that caused the mental health caused from the drugs, or is the mental health is it actual mental health, and those can be treated two separately. And I think that's the key to that. And if anybody's got any suggestions or anything on how to do that, or stats or anything, I think we would all be, open-minded and sharing that.
All right, John, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I've got it. How would you handle the mental health crisis?
That's right.
So very interesting question, and the timing couldn't really be any better. Just this evening, just before I got home, which is part of why I'm still in uniform. I apologize for that, but I was called to assist with a family having a mental health crisis out east of Roseburg, and a member of the family was acting very erratic and threatening and somewhat menacing. And it was because he was off of his medications. A couple of my deputies responded out there. And the important thing to recognize, I think, and for us to all understand, is that mental health is not a crime. Mental health is an illness. And sometimes law enforcement in the past has treated it more like a crime than an illness. So in this call earlier tonight, my deputies had already planned on arresting this guy for trespass and for harassment. And I explained to them, let's try to get them into the hospital first. Now, typically, right now, with the lack of resources, the hospital only has, I think, 4 or 5 beds in their psychiatric unit, and they typically won't take somebody into the facility unless they are actively suicidal. Well, 90% of these types of calls that we respond to, the people aren't necessarily suicidal, but they're having a manic episode or a mental breakdown of some kind. So we took this individual into the hospital, and we did get him a bed in the facility rather than taking him to jail, which we all know a jail environment is not the best environment for people with mental illness issues. So in the future, how do we address this? Well, I think what we need to do is we need to get back to where we were about 15 years ago. And that is where we had a behavioral health unit that was part of the hospital here. And there was a large number of 15, 20 beds available. And when we had people that were having mental health issues, the threshold to get them some help was much lower than it currently is. Like I said, now you almost have to be actively attempting suicide. So we need to get that facility back. There's a lot of work ahead of us to make that happen. But we are working with ADAPT and with the hospital and the county commissioners and the state mental health authorities are talking and actually making some progress in getting that facility back. And I think if we can get that facility back, we can start getting people help earlier before they get very deep and very manic into their illness.
All right, thank you, guys. So the last question from the online was your positions on safety, respect, and equal treatment, especially for people who are considered minorities. I part of this, and that's these aren't my questions. They just came, like I said, they mentioned they came over on the sign-up sheets. I'm going to just kind of preface this one regard to race issues, because in Black History Month, the Democratic Party actually had a a Black History Month presentation. And there were a number of folks that are people of color, some of whom are relatively new to the community, that had some real concerns about the way that they believe they're perceived and treated. So I think that, with the idea that sometimes we may not be, because we're pretty, um, almost like a monoculture regarding whites in this community. So I think that that being the backdrop, although I think in some sense a minority might also be the LGBT community, which I think that you address. So your position on safety, respect, and equal treatment, especially for people who are considered minorities, and Officer Kennerly, you're up.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Well, there I've got a lot of experience with, because being in Hawaii for 25 years, like I say, I've had about every minority working for me, and their cultures and their beliefs are totally different. You have to understand and respect that. It was the same when I came to work for the tribe, the Cow Creek tribe. The Native Americans have beliefs and cultures that are different. And if you don't understand or respect that, and you're not going to be able to get along with them and get that relationship. So obviously I have that relationship with the Native American community, and that's here on the for the local tribe with Cow Creek. So I think on that there, my record will speak for itself on that. Like I say, is you just have to understand that just because your beliefs may be a little bit different, you got to work with people, and you got to take the time to understand where they're coming from, what their religious beliefs are, what their cultures are. And then once you understand and you can talk to communicate with people, then things can work out. And communication's key, and understanding. So you have to be able to talk to those people and understand them, or everybody just shuts down and nothing gets accomplished. So like I say, is you just have to understand the people you're dealing with, and what they believe in, and then things will fall into play and you'll understand.
Okay, so first of all, let me just say that in the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, there is no room and no tolerance for anything but equal treatment of individuals, fair and impartial and equal treatment. If you take your oath of office seriously, that shouldn't even be a question. We don't see colors. People are people. And we strive to treat everybody equally. It's also important, I think, to understand, as a sheriff's deputy, you must understand and accept that your fundamental duty is to serve mankind. It's to safeguard lives and property. It's to protect the innocent against deception, the weak against oppression or intimidation, and the peaceful against violence or disorder, and to respect the constitutional rights of all men and all women to liberty, equality, and justice. And to me, that is a fundamental duty that each and every police officer that comes to work for me understands. It's been grilled into them when they come to work for me. It's been grilled into them when they attend the Oregon Police Academy, and we hold them to that throughout their career at the Sheriff's Office.
Well, I couldn't say that any differently. There, in law enforcement in Oregon, there's absolutely no room for discrimination, and it is critically important that we ensure our law enforcement officers in Douglas County and across the state and nation understand that. And I'm proud to say that I work for an agency full of men and women who do that every single day, and they carry out their duties without bias, without prejudice, and continue to serve all people, regardless of race, religion, creed, origin, or any other belief system. And that is incredibly important, because we serve over 112,000 community members here in Douglas County. And the men and women of the Douglas County Sheriff's Office do that faithfully. And if there were ever a deputy found in our ranks that was discriminatory, I can guarantee you that that deputy would not be employed any longer. We take this seriously. We conduct training on it annually. We participate in racial profiling, statistic reporting to ensure that we are holding ourselves accountable. And we expect the community to hold us accountable if we act out of line. But again, I'm proud of the men and women who serve the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, whether they are in our 911 center, our jail, our patrol division, or if they are support staff. The men and women there are dedicated to doing nothing but serving our community and doing so faithfully, regardless of anything else.
All right, thank you guys. Okay, does anybody who's in the audience still have any questions?
I was,
Oh, yes. We have
Connie.
one question.
Oh, I want to thank you all for doing an exceptionally tough job. It can't be easy. My question is, how do you feel about trying to close the gun show loop hole for firearms?
right,
And
so
background. Go ahead.
is that for me to answer first?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm absolutely supportive of that. Most of you probably know I'm pro-gun. I'm a defender of our Second Amendment along with every other one of our amendments, but I've been known for standing up against gun control and some other issues surrounding our Second Amendment. But this question, regarding the closing the loophole, I can be pro-gun and still believe in this item in closing that loophole, and I believe it's important. Any other time that a person wants to purchase a firearm legally, you have to go through the process and you have to have the background check done. And I've never understood why you could get away with buying one at a gun show and not have to. We've lived through one of the most tragic times this county has ever lived through, and that was during the UCC shooting. And if I thought for 1 second that the person responsible for the deaths of those 9 students had purchased that firearm at a gun show, I would be sick beyond words. Now we know that he didn't, but until we close that loophole, I think there's always a possibility someone like him could purchase a firearm and cause grave harm to people. And that has to be recognized, and we have to do whatever we can do to prevent that.
Brad and then Greg.
So I would just echo the fact that we have processes, and the process for purchasing a firearm at a sporting goods store has proven to be beneficial, and ensuring that the proper checks can be done to allow an individual to have access to that weapon. And I think that what Sheriff Hanlon said is spot on, allowing an individual to obtain that gun, but also following the procedure to ensure that the gun is not falling into the wrong hands is critically important. It's not only critically important for just the sale, but also who's getting the gun, where's it going, and how are we going to protect our community?
All right, I'm up next. Yeah, I wasn't aware that I thought you had to have a background check when you bought the gun. So yeah, I didn't realize that. I thought that was automatic with like anything else, like if you purchase it from Umpqua Survival or anything else. I'm definitely pro-gun, probably not a family more than pro-gun than are, but I'm also make sure you're responsible for your firearm. So to prevent gun violence is, something that the training and everything that you can do. I mean, just like felons, if somebody has a felony, they don't want to touch or have anything to do with a firearm. and there's a reason for that. They, get a stiffer or penalty. I think that would help with the firearms. Law-abiding citizen has the right and constitutional right to bear arms. And that's beyond contest, but it's got to be a law-abiding citizen that has the right to firearms. So good question. Great question. I thought when my son had bought it years ago that we had to have the background check and on that. So I thought they went through that. So yeah, that's a very good point, because I'll totally agree with Hanlon about that. If you had sold a firearm and it went out and was involved in a shooting or anything, that would be devastating. So thank you for your question.
Any other questions? Seeing none? Okay. The 1 minute wrap up. So that's going to go to Brad first, Greg second, and Hanlon last. John last. 1 minute wrap
Okay.
up. Why should we vote for you? What are you going to do for us?
Well, thank you again for having us this evening. And like I said, I think that my experience speaks for itself. Again, I have been in public safety for a long time, 23 years, and it has been my life's work and will continue to be in whatever capacity that is, whether I am serving in my current role or at some point in time serving as sheriff, if I'm blessed to do so. I want to continue to just be there for my community and do what I can. Again, it's been my life's work. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I will continue to do my very best each and every day. At the end of the day, experience matters, and that experience needs to be public safety service and experience, because again, we're talking about a public safety agency. We're not talking about just an everyday business. There are business components to serving as sheriff, but at the end of the day, you have to have someone who is qualified, who understands public safety, and who understands law enforcement administration, understands what is important in policies and procedures. A failed policy, because it's a good business decision, doesn't mean that it's the best for the community, and it can literally cost lives. Again, thank you for your time.
I'm up next.
Yep.
Yeah. So I want to thank everybody for this opportunity. Obviously, I'm going to really disagree about the business side. I think business does save lives. It makes you think outside the box. I've been doing law enforcement long enough to understand how law enforcement works. Okay. But I also have that factor of being able to come in and with the business side. So I'm really going to disagree with that. I think that's a quality that every business owner that should get into politics, and because they just bring a different dimension to that. The communications is one of them. It's not going to take me 16 years to fix it. I mean, you can't do that. You got to get that fixed right away as soon as you can. And that's where the business comes in. So I get it. Politicians, and they're going to have a different view on that. Like I say, I've been doing it 15 years with the law enforcement side. So, I understand how law enforcement works, and it's not just my background and life experience and world experience. I think would be a huge key for the people of Douglas County in the position of sheriff. I've heard that my whole life, that you're not qualified or whatever, and yet I've put in systems and done things the same with law enforcement. There's cases that I've got solved and got convictions and everything, and my background in business is what pulled that off. It wouldn't have happened, and that's the difference between the state having just a state authority, then having the tribal authority, and then having the federal authority. So I've worked with the FBI and had cases on that and got a conviction, and it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for my business experience and my worldview experience. So that I just want to stress on that I think that's being overused as far as that go. I think that's a huge tool for my candidacy. So I want to thank again. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm enjoying talking to the people of Douglas County, getting their views and opinions and ideas. I'm open to that. My email, if anybody wants to talk, is kennerly4sheriff@outlook.com, and that's with the number 4. And like I say, I'm just really enjoying this, and like I say, I believe that my overall view and everything can really help the people of Douglas County. And thank you again for your time.
All right. Well, I got to disagree with Mr. Kennerly. A business typically has to adopt a core strategy for profitably doing business. And business relies on capitalism and profit to be successful. So does that mean that a businessman, sheriff, wants to turn the office into a profitable business? If so, will he require his deputies to write, a certain number of citations to generate revenue? Will he increase fees to cover costs and make up for shortfalls in his budget? Will he start charging individuals for search and rescue services? I think these are all questions, that we need some answers to if we're going to start running a sheriff's office like a business. So a sheriff's office is about being fiscally responsible with taxpayer dollars, is what it comes down to. And in closing, I just want to say that I believe in serving with integrity. As your sheriff, I don't believe in giving up sheriff's responsibilities, duties, or management rights to other governmental entities, unions, or political influences. And the sheriff alone stands directly accountable to his citizens for the quality of service from the sheriff's office. I embrace knowing and fulfilling the sheriff's moral and statutory responsibilities. And I believe my character, my qualifications, and my experience, and my solid understanding of the office of sheriff makes me your best choice for sheriff. Again, thank you so much for the amazing support of me and of the sheriff's office over the years. And please know that I would truly consider it an honor and a privilege, as always, to earn your vote for re-election. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Not just for being here but for the difficult job that you all do and are responsible for. It is one of those tougher, things that you do as a living. And I know I and other people that are Democrats appreciate that. And you might be surprised to know that we're not necessarily gun control advocates. We are responsible gun ownership advocates. And so, there's always this divide, or, I think that isn't really accurate regarding particularly rural Democrats, if nothing else. So anyway, thank you again, really, for being here. We appreciate that. And, there'll be an opportunity for people to catch this on YouTube. And I'm really glad that we had this event.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Right.
Betsy.
You're welcome. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Off.